Okay, so if I just, I think one of the things that, I think I don't have to explain the overall impact that COVID has had on the overall sort of, in both the retail and FMCG sectors. But I think clearly one of the things we have seen is that, there is a huge impact in the overall change in consumer behavior. And what has been accelerated is that because of the overall health and safety concerns, as well as their desire for convenience and access, these have become the primary drivers for purchase, and this has also sort of helped the retail businesses and the retailers sort of speed up the adaptation of technology and the adoption of technology in their business. So some of the four main things that we are seeing clearly is the digital acceleration, which is that the investment should go beyond differentiation. So here we are saying that clients need to look at creating a connection and convenience through the right portfolio of digital assets. They need to derive the full potential of the data, because data predictability, to be able to mine the consumer data, get a single view of the consumer, is becoming very, very critical. We've talked about it in the last few years, but during the times of COVID, where brands needed to reach out to consumers to have a direct communication with them if they couldn't come to the stores, that has become very, very important. And the third element is meeting the shopper's privacy concerns with clarity and transparency. So privacy concerns, health and hygiene becoming very, very important. The second element is the supply chain. Many channels opened up. Online channel became a very, very important factor. Most of the clients which were doing 3-4% of through online sales, online became 25-30% of the total business. So winning at the last mile again meant going beyond the doorstep. It's not just about delivery. It's about returns. It's about the whole shopper experience of getting the product at home in the right sort of sterile and clean way. It also meant that every link in the supply chain needed to be fortified, and along with that, every decision that companies have had to make on supply chain has to be from the lens of the consumer. How do we put consumer at the center of all our decision making on supply chain so that we make the last mile availability very, 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 very effective and seamless? The third element is health and safety. Again, we can talk, we've talked ad nauseum about this over the last 9 months to 12 months. If you've got to put health and safety throughout the operations, and you've got to make sure that's the primary concern. Looks like we'll have another year of that at least. And then again, you have to embrace technology to basically enable a lot of the health and safety to be built into the retail journey. And lastly, it's the alignment of the cost structure. The cost, while some costs may have gone down, things like marketing costs and other elements of trade spends, etc. The overall cost of the business went up. Factories shutting down, opening up, stores shutting down, new channels emerging. A lot of health and hygiene factors to be enabled on every delivery. Everything needed to be packaged and needed to be sterile. All of that meant that that there was a huge pressure on profitability for customers as well, which meant that new models and alliances needed to be thought of. If you look at some of the key four trends that we are seeing that are fueling a lot of the change, is really technology advancement, changing the consumer. The consumer has changed a lot as well in terms of how he or she is dealing with the brands, how he or she is buying the products, the market forces, and the economic pressures. And these four factors in turn have given have sort of looked at shaping 7 distinct trends that are being shaped as a result of coming out of the lockdown situation. First is customization, the commoditization and premiumization. At one point, we are seeing a lot of commoditization of businesses. We are seeing a proliferation of brands and products in the market. As a result of that, we are seeing continued pressure on retail margins. We're also seeing the rise of private label. Private label has grown in the last 10 years at 3x the pace of traditional brands. And the quality of private label also is becoming better and better, which is further putting pressure on the traditional brands. At the same time, so this is also driving brands to look at more premiumization of their products to differentiate themselves from all the other new entrants as well as from the private labels. So you're also seeing a consolidation of platforms. You're seeing that more and more people are going on to the larger platforms. The larger platforms are becoming stronger. They are bringing on a lot more suppliers on them. So with a view to sort of cater to the needs of all the consumers and shoppers. And then you're seeing the emergence of sort of hyper-focused niche brands. A lot of niche vertical platforms have got set up to cater to consumers' needs. So I think these are some of the changes from a commoditization and premiumization perspective. Secondly, what we are seeing is the new models are having a major impact. You've seen the growth of D2C, direct to consumer, in many categories, especially electronics and food, etc., where more and more people are reaching out to end consumers to get product delivered into their homes. You're also seeing an alternative emerging new business models, emergence of new business models, which is around collaboration, partnering with alliance partners. So FMCG company partnering with a delivery company to do last mile delivery to consumers' homes, bypassing the traditional kirana and modern retail to enable people to come, to get the products into consumers' homes. Also, you're seeing a rise in rentals, and this again, I don't know whether this is a trend or whether this is just during the COVID point, but there's clearly a rise. You're seeing more rentals versus ownership. Everything we saw in the last 3 years, there was a lot of focus around ownership as well. But I think because of that, I think because of the overall challenges in terms of the cost of capital, cost of ownership, uncertainty in the market, you're seeing a rise in rentals as well. Growth of second-hand product market. This has been a huge trend, what we call re-commerce. Big focus in markets like China. It's almost an $100 billion business there today. You're seeing a lot of this come into play as well. And then you're seeing the things like new membership models are emerging. A lot of communities are buying together. So you're looking at a lot of community commerce. You're looking at a lot of shift to home cooking and consumption at home. So these are some of the broad trends that we are seeing both in India and globally. And then obviously the digital success is a mixed bag as well. In developing markets, they're starting to see a lot of diminishing returns on digital investment. 40% increase in spend in the last sort of 3 years has given rise to only 11% more customer acquisitions. But you're also seeing a big drive towards mobile commerce, accounting for almost 75% in developed markets, starting to play a bigger role in India. Clearly, there's a big shift towards digital, accounting for almost 65-70% of most companies' total ad spends. And then you're also seeing the emergence of unpenetrated groups online. More and more groups and verticals are coming up. And also the rise of social influence, key opinion leaders, key opinion consumers are starting to impact the overall the consumer behavior as well. And then we are seeing smaller and closer. One of the big trends has been get closer to end consumers, smaller stores. So you're seeing the rise of discounters, convenience stores, grocery stores coming up, which is grocery has been a big, strong category during this time because these stores were allowed to be open during the entire COVID period, and that's done very well. Yet we are seeing continued store closures in soft categories like apparel, accessories. Some of these trends will reverse. Remember that in India, e-commerce still accounts for only accounts for 3 to 4% of the total sales. 97-98% of business is still offline retail. That will continue to grow. And even in the West, where there's a lot of talk about stores closing down, net in the last 3 years, most stores have opened than have closed. So clearly, brick and mortar is here to stay, but in a different format, smaller format, discounters. Clearly, you're seeing a divergence in mall-tier performance as well. And you're also seeing a quick focus on localized inventory. Consumer brands and companies are working with retailers and partners to make sure that product is available and there is a lot of localized availability so that out-of-stocks are reduced. Convenience is the new battleground, and a lot of focus around convenience in the last 4 to 5 years. As a result, convenience stores are expanding, and you're also seeing a lot of heightened, this is driven by COVID, a lot of heightened expectations around delivery as well. How do we get the product to the end consumer very quickly? 12 hours, 14 hours, 8 hours, 6 hours, companies promising delivery on the same day within a few hours as well, and maybe willing to charge a bit, but to ensure that. And again, if you look at on the next column is around fragmentation and consolidation. You've seen the consolidation of market share for large retailers. Large retailers have got bigger. So there's a sort of decreased volatility of market share. Having said that, you have a lot of small and new entrants also coming up. You're also seeing a lot of fragmentation in consumer sector with the rise of private labels. You're also seeing a shift in large format stores, also opening neighborhood stores, trying to get closer and closer to the end consumer. So some change around that. And the last column here is the health and sustainability is becoming a critical element. So growth in sustainable marketing right through. Divergence of healthier and unhealthier consumers. You clearly see during COVID a lot of push towards health and wellness. People really starting to focus around their lives around that. And as a result of that, you see the rise of healthy, fast casual. How can I make it healthy, but at the same time it needs to be casual. It doesn't need to be very expensive. It doesn't need to be something which is very, very premium for me. And again, so I think these are some of the trends that we are seeing globally. And in India, and I think these are replicated and these have been captured in the report that we are launching, which is Know Your Consumer. And lastly, what does the report capture for us? Basically, the first part is looking at the sort of knowledge of the markets. where is the growth coming from? So what is happening in the Indian retail industry, expected to go at 8% to get to $1.3 trillion by 2025. You have a rising working population. You have urban is a big growth story. And again, during COVID, this has been a big growth driver for India, where tier 2, tier 3 and rural markets have really driven the growth across all categories, not just FMCG. Then second, you see increasing number of households are driving consumption. You have smaller households, increasing number of people, number of households are increasing, which means that instead of the family of 6 buying together, you have family of 3s and 4s and 2s, which are living separately. So their consumption, so the overall net consumption goes up. You're also seeing rising per capita income, at least till COVID. We will now see what the impact of COVID was on the overall sort of, overall disposable incomes of families. Secondly is the nuances of consumers. What are your consumers? How has your consumers' journey changed during this time? Because clearly there is a huge impact, like I said in the beginning, that we have seen the rise of e-commerce, online buying, direct to home, community buying. All of these factors are going to, while some of these will go back as things open up, as and when things open up, but to some extent, these habits have changed for the good, and consumers are going to continue to shop that way, at least learn that way, because, a lot of the work companies are going to still say work from home 2 days a week or 3 days a week. So how does that consumption at home change, and how will that impact? Then identifying your niche, moving away from mass targeting to looking at using social media, digital analytics, making sure that that brands and retailers have a good sense of who their shoppers are, how do they shop the category, when do they shop the category, and why do they shop the category, and understanding all of those elements and identifying who are we going after, rather than doing a broad brush advertising. Like I mentioned, more and more money is being spent on digital marketing, but digital marketing only works when you have a good idea of who your consumers are, and you've got good analytics to support that. The third part is around delighting customers with best-in-class CX. Clearly a big push, and we've talked about it for the last many years, but during COVID, this has been a big differentiator. People and brands who've been able to differentiate, create a wow customer experience, enable, products to be delivered at home very conveniently, where the website works well, where the entire journey of the shopper, whether he or she is going to the store or buying online, or going store and ordering online, or buying, checking out the products online and buying in store, all of that needs to connect well to create a wow experience, not just till the point they've bought, but post that. How are we engaging with shoppers? How do we tell them about new launches that we are doing, new elements to it? In case they don't like the product, how do we make the returns easier? All of this is part of the CX. And then you have the rise of the understated sort of rural consumer. This is a big story leading up to COVID. If you remember 2019, rural consumption had really slowed down, and that was what was impacting both retail and FMCG in 2019 and up to February. But post COVID, and during COVID, we had a lot of migrant labor moved back. A lot of people stayed at home. Also, a lot of the spending by the government on projects in rural, that's given a big boost to rural consumption. How sustainable it'll be will be interesting to see for the next few quarters, but clearly that's been a big growth driver. Then we come to the omni-channel retail. Again, we've talked about it a lot. You've got increasing internet penetration, rising number of online shoppers, increasing use of smartphones, and even your feature phones have got smartphone features now. Growth of digital payment modes. It's so much easier to pay. You've got so many online payment wallets, and you're also starting to see the roots of AR, VR, and all of this is driving the growth in e-commerce market in India. Our prediction was it will get to 5-6%, maybe 7% in the next 4 to 5 years, but this may happen this year itself because of every company and brand across every category focusing more and more on online as well. So offline here to stay. 80, 85, 90% will still be offline, but clearly e-commerce and online has a big part. So secondly, the whole piece around retailtainment, creating the wow experience, the amazing shopper experience. Third is digital engagement across the shopper journey, not just when they come to buy the store, but the product in the store or on your website. But how has the journey been right through, from product information to visuals to the ability to get peer feedback, to get customer feedback, or people who've tried the product. Online platforms do a great job of that. You can go and see reviews. How are we enabling all of this so that the shopper journey remains very, very very, very clean and very, very easy for the shopper to identify and buy the product. And then the other part is the video and voice, the rise of the vernacular. It's really the era of vernacular. We are seeing a lot of local language play where it doesn't have to, the conversation don't have to be in English or Hindi, but in regional languages where people are more comfortable engaging with products and brands. And last is winning with the consumers. So clearly resonating core brand values to connect with consumers. Consumers want to know, what does the brand stand for? How is it ethically sourced? Is it being correctly produced? Are they sort of not harmful to the environment? Are they not harmful from a water and resource point of view consumption? So core brand value is very, very important. Purpose at the heart of strategy and innovation, so that you're continuously driving what is the purpose of my business, what is the purpose of my brand. And during COVID, we've seen lots of new interesting brands come up across apparel, food, etc., who are talking about the purpose of the business, what do they stand for, how are they ethically produced, how is their transparency in the business. And all of this sort of, to drive to basically gaining consumers' loyalty. While loyalty is going down overall in established brands, brands have to work harder and harder to maintain that connect with their consumers and their shoppers so that they can continue to do that. So all of this is covered in our report. That's all I had. It'll be absolutely great to, get feedback once people have had a chance to read and download our report. Over to you, Lisa.